Hey everybody, it's Tuesday.
And welcome to this week's episode of Hook, Line, and Striker.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily. And thanks for being here with us tonight.
Yeah.
With that, we usually start with kind of a fishing report and all that kind of good stuff. So, we had a really interesting weekend, actually. We fished the same body of water 2 days in a row. And we did have some weather move through. We were supposed to get rain Saturday into Sunday night. And I don't actually think that we got anywhere we were at. But Sunday was supposed to be totally dry, and we did get rain. So, Saturday was kind of a grind. And really the key for us was boat position, because we were finding groups of fish, but you had to get your bait, in kind of very specific spots to get that bite. So fish were kind of hunkering down, and we caught a few great bluegills. I did also see a really nice crappie jump and cast her right over there and caught him. So that was really a whole lot of fun. Why are you laughing?
Well, she's talking about grinding it out in boat position. What she means is that she caught all the fish, she sat on all the good stuff, and I was in the back of the boat going, woo. I was lucky I didn't break a pole that day. That's how bad my luck was. But that's okay. No, that's fishing. And we had, we found out a lot. We went back the next day, tried some different stuff, and that worked out.
Not in the same spots.
But you started out in the middle of our weekend. We had a 4-day weekend. We traveled all the way through Minnesota. We visited the JT place. We stopped into my folks and stole some of their food and jetted back out. And then we went to the Striker place.
Actually, yeah, that is a whole lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Always great to, visit the Striker location.
Mm-hmm.
Love seeing they have like a whole room with all the products that are coming this year. So, got to, check that out. I don't know what to say about it. There's so much good stuff.
So much new
choose
stuff coming
anywhere
up,
to start. So, if you are interested, actually all of that stuff is up on the website now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are looking to get gear, if you have things in mind, this is the time of the season to, start looking at that, because when things become available for ice season, I know that people are going to be interested in getting it, because last year there were things that people couldn't get, that was kind of across the fishing field. So, just have your list ready and go for it when you see it. So what else?
That's all. I don't got anything else. You caught all the fish.
If I said that, it would have sounded like a lie. So I guess with that, let's bring in our guest for the night. So Darren, welcome to the show.
How's it going? Nice to meet you. I don't think we officially met, but very nice to meet you. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, nice meeting you too.
Yeah, we come through your area all the time. So one of these times we're bound to, bump into you.
Probably pass each other at the shows from time to time, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. So for people who maybe don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I grew up on Lake Vermilion. I've been fishing for, what is it now? Probably 40 some years. I grew up on Lake Vermilion fishing with my grandpa. He would just take me out every day. I'd go live with him all summer out there. And I graduated from up there, and there's just no jobs up there. There's not a whole lot to do. So I moved down here to the metro area and fished kind of the docks and piers around here, and kind of got bored with it a little bit. I wanted something a little more adventurous, and I didn't have a boat. So someone mentioned that I should go down and try to fish by the river here. I lived in Shakopee actually at that time. He said, take some dead sucker minnows out there and throw them out there and see what you can get. And I'd never caught a catfish before. So I went down there and threw a dead sucker minnow out, and probably within 20 minutes, I'm guessing, I had a 45 pounder. So after that, I was done, all right, I'm a cat fisherman, I loved being down there by the river, by myself, away from everybody, it's just kind of desolate and kind of like the whole river rat thing. So yeah, I kind of turned into a river rat after that. And I've probably been doing that for, 15 years or so. And within the last 5 years, my wife's like, you're out there all the time. Why don't you just start up this guide service and maybe, supplement a little bit with the income. So I started doing that about 5 years ago, and I'm doing catfish and sturgeon now too as well. So, and to do that on the rivers here, you have to get your Coast Guard captain's license. So that was kind of a process too. And so, yeah, that's my whole experience. I'm a guide now in the area and enjoy doing it. I tell people I'd probably do it for free, even if I wasn't getting paid. So I think it's a good thing. It's kind of a part-time job. I do work a full-time job as well. So it's really keeping me busy.
Nice.
Yeah. I do think it's really cool to have you on because I think, for as many episodes as we've had of this show, you may be our first like catfish, sturgeon, river guide. So I think this
man, really
yes.
Always taking second fiddle,
No, so I think it's super cool. It's like all new stuff. But I think that I love hearing your story kind of about going down to the river and not having a boat, because that honestly reminds me a lot of our story. But I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to is, being a shore fisherman. Sometimes lakes are perfect when fish are shallow, but sometimes lakes are really, really tough to fish. So the river does seem to have more opportunities kind of through the season for a shore angler. So I guess starting with some really basic information here for somebody who is just starting out on the river, how do they go about doing that? What do they need in their arsenal to be successful?
So the first thing and I didn't have this when I started, but we have Google Maps now. Everyone's got Google Maps. So it's literally the easiest thing to use to find spots to fish on the river. I mean, you have these apps like, Onyx or whatever, so you can figure out who owns this property. But along the Minnesota River and the Mississippi River, there's so much public land. Like if you want to put in the work, there's just like unlimited supply of shore spots. Some of it you really have to, put in the work and walk a little bit. But that would be the first thing, is just finding a good shore spot, near access. Basically any access on the river down here has a bike trail, a walking path. So find a good spot, where you have some clear water next to some, trees and brush. And I would just suggest, a medium heavy rod, probably a 3 or 4 ounce sinker, 5 or 6 ounce circle hook, put a piece of dead sucker on there and throw it out and wait. And literally that's all you have to do. I mean, that's the basic of it. You will learn some things, where you need to cast so you're not getting snagged up, and how the eddies form and fishing current seems. But literally, you really just have to go out there and throw it out there and wait. And you'll get fish, no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. It's just patience and effort. And the more you put into it, the more you'll get out. So.
That's, and you're saying, with a piece of sucker or something on there, even go out into your yard or get a pack of worms, and just a big old gob of worms will do it. I think that as shore fishing, that'll get it done. So that's really great.
Mm-hmm. You can catch everything on worms, and we kind of play the bait game sometimes. We won't bring any bait. We'll just go and dig up some worms, catch something a little bigger, like a drum or a sucker or whatever, cut that up, and then catch the next bigger fish. So it's kind of like a stepping stone, and that's fun to do, just going out there without any bait and just see how well you can do, just, finding whatever bugs or whatever, and it's a fun little challenge to do.
Yeah, and you're mentioning catching drum and stuff, and actually, I love that. That's something that does kind of help pass the time between, other fish that maybe you're targeting. But, in the Wolf River, depending on what section you're fishing, because sometimes you get a bunch and sometimes you don't, but, there's starting to be some really big drum out there. So I think, in the past, they've always been kind of a small nuisance fish, but I think nowadays there's even people having a whole bunch of fun, targeting some of those big drum out there.
It's people are surprised when they see how big they can get. Like I've seen legit, 20 and 30 pounders. And so a lot of times for flathead catfish, we'll throw out live bullheads, 9 or 10 inches big. And I actually caught one on one of these big bullheads one time, and it just totally surprised me. Like on a live bait, you usually don't catch something on a drum on a big live bait like that. And it was legit, 20, 25 pounds. It's just, I'm holding it up, and you wouldn't believe how big this drum is. And it ate a bullhead. So that's another great thing about the river is you just never know what's going to happen. You catch something on something, it's crazy.
Yeah, like a muskie could be there,
Right.
a gar,
Absolutely.
like something that you don't expect. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. We caught a lot of gar this year. And this year was really low, the water levels. We had the drought going on, and for whatever that reason, that must have been like really good conditions for gar, because they just, especially June, July, they were just really actually nuisance at some point. We were catching so many, and then stealing bait, and so whatever it was this year on the river, it's just perfect conditions for them.
That's a really great point. We happen to live in an area of Wisconsin that we got quite a bit of rain. Actually, our Wolf River right now, we're just recently within the last week was at the peak that it's been all year. Like, it looks like spring out there, but it isn't. So you guys had the opposite conditions. You had super dry. So, I mean, how does that affect all of your different fishing spots, like with the water levels being so different?
Yeah, it really, so the common, I think, myth or misnomer is that when the water's low, it's easier to fish because you just go hit the holes, and the fish will be in these holes. Well, they are. However, it just, the oxygen level just depletes, and you can't get them to bite. These holes are full of fish, but you just cannot get them to bite. They want oxygen. They want flow. They want a little cooler water, and we didn't have that this year. So, and it also, especially, here where I am in Jordan, the river dropped to a point where with my boat, I'm really not comfortable even taking it out. There's just so many snags and sandbars, and you pretty much needed a jet boat to get around this year. So I actually moved most of my guide trips downstream, into the navigable channel where they actually dredged the river. And I did okay down there. I would prefer to be right here. I get my launches, a mile from my house here. So I would have preferred to be down there, but you just got to adjust with the weather. So, but it's, it was near record levels this year. I've never seen it this low probably in 20 years. So just had to do some adjusting.
Wow. And so have you guys gotten any rain yet to have caught up on that, or just still kind of status quo?
We have got a little bit here in the last few weeks, and it was just enough to hold it steady so it didn't drop, below record level. And it's still really low. So right now I've actually switched over to the St. Croix River, and even though it's really low over there, it's a huge river, and you wouldn't really notice that it's super low. That you can get around a lot, and where I fish is there isn't much flow to begin with, so I haven't noticed the negatives of it over there as much as I did catfishing here in the spring. So.
So as a little side note here to the people at home, if you guys have questions or comments or anything along the way, make sure to post that in our comment section, because we can talk about that as well. But Darren, did I see, I hope I'm not wrong, did I see that you were posting that you use a cast net?
I do. Yeah, it was, so the Minnesota DNR actually, they started these kind of species work groups. So they would kind of pick stakeholders, that for different species. So bass and pike and walleye, and they did a catfish one as well. So I was part of this group. And as a group, we decided bait was a really big issue for us. And up until then, you couldn't use a cast net in the States. So that was one of our initiatives to try to get cast nets legal. So there were a lot of hoops we had to jump through, a lot of different legal terms we had to use. And so as it is now, you can use a cast net for a gizzard shad only, and you can only use it on a couple bodies of water, like the Minnesota River, the Mississippi River, and the St. Croix River. You have to go through online, aquatic invasive species training. You have to get a permit for the net, and then you also have to keep track of everything you catch all year, and then turn that into the DNR. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through, but gizzard shad are awesome bait, and everything eats them. And some of these rivers are just loaded, like the St. Croix, there's billions of gizzard shad out there. They're the main food source. So it makes it so much easier when you can go out there and just catch fresh bait. It's so much better. Like, I'm so glad we were able to get that passed, and shout out to the DNR for allowing that, because we couldn't do that, up to 3 or 4 years ago. So
that is really cool. Off camera, we were talking a little bit about, my time up in the Grand Forks, Crookston area, fishing the Red River. And We also talked about catching your own bait while you were up there, you know, going out with some worms and just fishing for bait. We would do that for mooneye and goldeneye, and that's a species of shad. And those, when we could get into a school of those and pull some of those up on rod and reel and then be able to cut them up and throw them on our catfish stuff, we always had really good nights when we could do that.
Oh yeah, I mean, fresh bait is, when it comes to catfish and sturgeon, fresh bait is top of the list. Like my must-haves, you know, and sometimes you can't get it. You know, you just resort to buying crawlers, and that's a good second choice. But my first choice is fresh bait. You know, fresh minnows, fresh suckers, fresh gizzard shad. And I really wish we would expand that cast net, like you say, to, you know, be able to catch these goldeye where they're schooled up in some of these places. You know, just throw the net and, you know, you're good for the night. So
Yeah.
maybe someday, but I'm not holding my breath.
I did also see in your post, you know, when you were talking about that you were saying that you loved wearing your rain gear. And I actually really love that as a post because, you know, we've talked about obviously wearing your rain gear in the rain. And then, you know, the spray of the boat as you're, you know, maybe flying down the lake. But I forget the different applications of things like a cast net where you're, you know, getting all wet like that. So I just really love that you had mentioned that.
Yeah, I kind of figured that out a couple times out there. I was like, you know, I'd be done and I would just be soaking wet from the waist down. I was like, why am I doing this? Why don't I just throw these bibs on and then, you know, at least kind of stay dry and comfortable. I'll go out, you know, tell the ice, I'll be out there basically the last day and tell people are ice fishing. Like 2 days later, you know, I'm out there with the boat. So when that water temp is, you know, 35, 36 degrees, I'm telling you what, I mean, you get cold fast. And actually at that point, I usually switch over to my heavier, you know, ice fishing gear at that point, you know, but even then the rain gear works good if you get a warmer day. So it works. Like I make a mess when I'm doing it. So it helps a lot.
And then for somebody who's wearing them so consistently, can you speak a little bit to the durability? And then is it the adrenaline suit that you're running?
Yeah, it is adrenaline. I don't know. I just really like everything about it. You know, it breathes well. I think the one thing I found is I maybe should have ordered a larger size because I found it's a little tight, you know, kind of around my waist. But other than that, it works great. You know, I haven't had any issues with it at all. And my wife ended up buying it for me as a birthday gift. So it turned out pretty well. That, you know, just kind of surprised me with it. So I may have not even bought a rain suit to begin with, but she bought it for me and it worked great. So I was like, yeah, I should have thought of that a lot earlier.
That is actually really awesome. So the other thing that you were mentioning is wearing I'm sorry, we were talking about the cast nets and everything and having fresh bait. And so with that, it makes me laugh and think about all the people who are like, they have special concoctions for different like stink blends and all of that. So is that something that has a time and a place, or you just don't do that?
Personally, I kind of steer away from it, but there are people who swear by all these scents, and I should maybe experiment a little more, especially since I'm able to have a few more rods out with clients in the boat and everything. But I haven't really found the need for it. You know, I would love to be able to prove that it works, because then I could utilize it. But I don't know. There's a lot of superstitions of people, you know, using like anise oil and all these different. I don't know. I pass. I just use fresh bait, and that's worked well for me. So not saying it doesn't work. It's just not my style, I guess.
Yeah. Plus, sometimes that stuff is like gross to have around the boat.
Oh yeah, especially the stink bait, like for catfish. Yeah, that you can make some big messes with that. And yeah, if you want to catch little fish, it actually works really well. Like they call them little fiddlers or whatever, you know. If you want to catch a lot of those, it works great. But I don't think it's worth the trouble and the stink and the mess. And yeah.
So then one of the other, I guess, myths, I don't know, about, you know, catfishing and stuff is people say, you know, the early or go late or night fishing. Is that something that you agree with, or that's just something that you can go out midday and do just as well?
I think it's kind of a myth that you need to go out at night. I feel that maybe the bite picks up a little bit, but I see so many nice fish caught throughout the day. I think it's just different tactics you use. The reason I do it is, like I said, I work a full-time job, so it works for my schedule. The other thing is the boat traffic dies, the wind dies. I just like the atmosphere being out there at night. And you definitely have to change your tactics, the safety concerns, being after dark. But my saying is nighttime's the right time. So it just works out well for me. And the bite does pick up a little bit. I think there's actually, just like every other fish, you kind of get that sundown bite. So
when you're talking preparing different, I know that you are talking about like yourself as an angler, but then are you also preparing your rods differently or your baits?
You mean as far as nighttime and daytime?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say a whole lot. There's not a whole lot between the day and night. I would say mostly it's tactics like, depths of water and cover. You're probably going to want to be tighter to cover in the daytime versus the nighttime. The fish kind of come out and roam the flats and get a little more predator-ish, if you would. For the big flatheads will come up shallow during the night. So you just have to change your tactics a little bit. That's about it.
And then the other thing is, for flathead versus channel catfish, I have caught quite a few channel cats in my time, but I've actually not caught a flathead. So tell us a little bit about how you can target one versus the other.
So flatheads generally will go after live bait more than the channel cats. So a lot of times we're using bullheads, suckers, creek chubs, all live, in the 8 to 10 inch range. Suckers, you can get a little bigger, we're talking, 12 to 15 inch sometimes, especially here in the fall, they'll start eating a lot bigger baits. So, but they will eat cut bait too. So what I like to do is I like to have a couple live baits and a couple cut baits. And the cut baits usually keep the action throughout the night. We're catching channel cats and we do get the bonus flatheads as well. And then the live baits usually will be flatheads. It's probably 80 to 90%, but every once in a while, channel cat will come and eat that live bait too. So that's fun. Lately, like the last few weeks, so I've been out sturgeon fishing using these shad, and I've caught more in the last 3 weeks on these just cut shad on the bottom flatheads than I have in the last 3 weeks targeting them. So it's just, bonus fish, which is kind of fun. You don't expect it. You're sturgeon fishing and you catch this 40, 50 pound flathead. So it's a fun bonus fish as well.
Is that because you're using a larger bait for the sturgeon or just random luck?
I think it's just random. This time of year, we usually see that, as the group, as a community, you're seeing a few flathead caught in the fall, especially on these shad. I think they're just, beefing up for the winter. The flatheads will go dormant in the wintertime, so they do have to really put on the pounds because once that water temp's like 40 and below, they just shut down. They don't eat their whole till March probably. So they do need to pack on some pounds to be healthy the whole winter. The channel cats will continue to eat throughout the winter, and I do fish for those through the ice as well, but the flatheads go dormant. So that's kind of a big difference between the two.
That was exactly going to be my next question is, targeting them through the ice. You tend to hear people are either like on bodies of water where, oh, you can't keep the catfish off the line or you can't catch them at all. So I'm going to guess, are you on like the back waters of a river system then, or?
So there's a chain of lakes called the Horseshoe Chain of Lakes up by St. Cloud. And they, I don't know how many years ago it was, but they stocked channel cats in here. I think it was to control the bullhead population because they'll eat bullheads. But they just took off. They exploded. And they just filled this whole system full of channel cats. So the reason we're catching so many through the ice is because there's so many. There's so much competition. I mean, you'll go set up on these holes and it'll just be your graph will be just completely channel cats from top to bottom, and we'll catch 100 of them. It's just crazy. So I think you can catch channel catfish through the ice. They're not as aggressive. So I think if you are going to go out and target them, you want to go to bodies of water where there's a lot of them, like this particular chain of lakes where there's tons of them. It just makes it a lot easier. They definitely do slow down in the wintertime. Some of these places where you normally are catching big channel cats, for example, I'm trying to think, Mendota, you maybe know that, kind of down in southern Wisconsin, down by Madison. That's a really popular channel cat lake, and people do catch them through the ice, but they really slow everything down. They're using the automatic fishermen, and they're barely just eating that bait to trigger that thing, and you really have to slow your presentation down. But you can be successful, but it's nothing like open water. So there is a different change for sure.
And then as far as like slow moving bait goes, like once in a while I'll throw down a hot dog for a pike. You think Catfish would like that?
Yeah, I've actually got them on hot dogs. I did a fun little video on YouTube. I got a YouTube channel, and I just took a bunch of hot dogs, cut them up, and I soaked them in like this Team Catfish scent, and I started catching them. It worked out pretty good, actually. So it's fun to try different things, especially for the YouTube video, just kind of different adventures.
Yeah. I always joke about it, but honestly, I love using it. I don't have to keep it alive. Hot dogs are the greatest bait ever. They can freeze. You could use them. It's
right.
Good to go.
If you get hungry, you got a little supplement meal.
No, I also soak mine usually in like a little bit of oil and garlic. So maybe that's like a secret that we're doing over here. I don't know, but I don't know if I would still grill it up and eat it. I know it's just oil and garlic, but gets pretty intense.
We'll eat a lot of things. The newest trend on YouTube is these guys using chicken breasts. They just cut up chicken breasts, and they're comparing different brands and leaving it out a little bit longer. And there's all kinds of these different challenges like people using chicken breasts. It's soaked in Kool-Aid and sugar and all this other stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It seems to work, but again, it's not for me.
Plus, fish clearly like chicken tenders better.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I do use some livers through the ice up there, catching them through the ice, and they do like these livers, and they're much easier to use in the wintertime because you just freeze them and just picking off little pieces and putting them on your jigs. So that works out pretty well.
Oh, so not even on a tip up, like on a jig pole.
Oh yeah, on a jig pole, yeah. And we use just foam bobbers, and they'll come up and they'll just barely pull your bobber under. Sometimes they are a little aggressive; they'll hit it pretty hard, but for the most part, they're just kind of sucking on a little bit, and you set the hook, and yeah, they're fun fish to catch through the ice.
That is really awesome. I honestly, I just love catfish. Maybe it's because, like we were saying, I got my start with Josh kind of on the river. That's what we were always fishing for. But catfish are just such a fight. So, in the winter, you're saying that they go a little bit dormant. Do they still fight as well in the winter?
They do, and the way I look at it is they fight harder than anything else in the wintertime. So that's why I fish for them. They put up a better fight than a walleye or a bass or anything. So I love going and targeting, but then I got stuck catching these sturgeon through the ice. So that's my new obsession, is going after sturgeon through the ice, and kind of forgot about the catfish now for a while. So.
So sturgeon through the ice. Tell us a little bit about how you get them through the hole.
So yeah, you kind of have to go out a little bit prepared for these things. You have to get bigger gear, and for the last few years, I've been using an 8-inch auger and making 3 holes. We kind of call it a Mickey Mouse because it looks like a Mickey Mouse with the 2 and the 1. But I decided that a 10-inch auger is definitely better, so I did pick up a 10-inch auger. And now I'm just using 2, kind of in an oval pattern, and that's generally big enough to get just about anything that we're catching. So, but you do have to be prepared for big fish. I have a rod right here, actually, that, I had a friend of mine custom makes this 40-inch extra heavy rod. And that's what I caught this guy back here behind me on. But we just use, I don't know if you can see this or not, but little glow beads in a foam bobber and just like a little 1/4 ounce hook or whatever. And the other thing, it's a little controversial, but we use treble hooks as well. And I just feel that you get a better hook set when you're fishing straight up and down with the way the suckers, pick them up off the bottom. I feel like I have a better chance of catching them. So, and the glow beads, honestly, some of this stuff, the fishing is a little bit slower. So it's just, you tend to come up with stuff, like, oh, maybe this will work. You're sitting there staring at the hole. You're like, maybe I'll try this next time, or maybe I'll try this. And it's just a lot of goofy stuff where really it doesn't really matters a whole lot. It's just boredom mostly.
I did really like that, though. I did like all of the glow beads on there, because even I have some that I've thrown a few beads on, and you never know really what's going to work out. So that's really fun. Did you say it was a heavy ice rod or a
extra heavy? I think he calls it an extra heavy. I believe so. Andy Wolfram Custom Rods is the guy that makes these, and sturgeon fishing became really popular here through the ice maybe 5 or 6 years ago. They finally opened up a season for us, and people found out they could start catching these things through the ice, and it's a lot of fun to catch these fish. Well, there's no market for sturgeon rods. You can't go and catch it or find a ice sturgeon rod. I mean, you can find pike rods or lake trout rods, and for the most part, they're still too light. So he started building these rods, and it really caught on. Like most of the people I know are using these Wolfram Custom rods out there, and he did a really good job. He designed the handle. The handle's super long on this thing. I don't know what the length is, but you can get leverage. Your hand's way up here. You're using an arm for leverage. So like I said, you can catch some big fish, and he's got some really good designs in that rod that help out. So
that is actually really awesome because, a lot of times on an ice rod, you see that really short handle. And, walleye, get a pike in or two, panfish, that's all going to be super easy. But when you have the fight of a sturgeon, you really do need that extra handle for that stabilization. And like you're pointing out, that's something that is really hard to find in a rod off the rack. So when you can find somebody to make it, kind of situation specific, that is a really cool situation.
Yeah.
Right. Yep, for sure. And it's one of those things where necessity is the best invention, right? So he started putting those out, and people just start gobbling them up. I love that, how people, just come up with these things and they can support themselves by doing these small businesses. I love that. On my boat, I have these rod holders. I just found, maybe a year or two ago, this guy in his garage, he designed these, multiple position rod rack where you can put these rod holders on, and they're all, really heavy aluminum, powder coated. And I looked at it, I was like, man, this is something that would last forever, and found this guy on Facebook, and he's like, yeah, my business is just blowing up. And now a lot of people I know have them on their boats. It's just, spawned out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, and those are both really cool examples of, we were talking in the beginning of the show about kind of knowing what you're looking for going into this ice season. And, when you see it, try to get it, because some of the things that we saw last year, selling out, turned a lot of these people to, different, the mom and pop shops. And a lot of times people found some really great products there that they didn't even necessarily know were there.
Yeah.
Right. I'm interested to see how this fall's going to go. Like, people who weren't finding stuff, I feel like they're going to start hoarding things, even though they don't need them. They're like, I'm not going to be able to find this, so I got to start buying it. And the way the supply chain is, it's like, I have a feeling stuff is just going to be gone this year, just, and you aren't going to be able to find it. Like, I remember, it seems like last year, a lot of the fish houses, you just could not find a fish house. People were driving all over the state to pay double the price if they had to. And I feel like we might be going into that again as well.
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you say that. I have seen a few fish houses posted already this year on social media, and they're all going for like full retail.
Right.
Whoa.
Yeah, and we've heard very similar things that, if you are in the market for something, go out and seek it out right now. A lot of the direct buy options are not available. All the retailers have bought up as much product as they can, and when they're out, it sounds like they're going to be out. So
yeah, it's a little. I'm hoping I can get some of the striker gear I'm looking for. Like, it might be gone before I can get my hands on it. So we'll see.
Right.
Yeah. But like Josh is saying, definitely check those local retailers, because a lot of that product is going out to different stores and shelves out there.
Yep.
And, Darren, like you were saying, it had people crossing, states last year buying stuff. Well, that's the nice thing, is hopefully retailers are looking to ship this year. So.
Right.
Awesome. With that, I'm not sure actually how ice shows are going to be, but I know that if they're going, we are still looking forward to being there, because there's a lot of really great stuff out there to talk about. So, Darren, we were doing a lot of talking about ice. I assume that you run a striker suit, so I was going to ask which one.
I do. I have, let's see. So I currently have the Climate, and I think that was the first year I had the Climate. I had the hard water before that. But I found that it's too warm for me. So I used it without the liner all year. So I'm going to have to maybe adjust that, or just kind of go with that this year. But now I'm looking at this new Apex suit. I'm thinking, that's a lot lighter. And I don't know what the warmth is going to be like, but just getting some of that bulk off would be nice. I spend a lot of time in my boat between now and December. And I really utilize that suit, and it's nice to have because like I said, the water temp is so cold. For whatever reason, you slip or fall, you end up in the water. With that water being so cold, it's nice having that backup, knowing that you're going to float. If you don't have a PFD on at the time, which everyone should have, but a lot of us sometimes forget to do that. So it's nice to have that option. And so I'm really got my eye on that Apex, suit, because I think it would be a good kind of in between, because like I said, I use a lot of it in the boat during that transition period, especially this spring too. But as far as ice fishing for, doing this sturgeon thing, I'm driving my truck out, setting up my hub, going between the truck and the hub. So, a full climate suit maybe wasn't the best option for me, but I really want to try it out. And it works pretty well without the liner. With the liner, man, it's a little too much for me. That's a warm suit. And if someone's going to be spending some time out outside the shelter, man, that's the one to get. You're not going to get cold, tell you what.
Yeah, so we were actually lucky enough to go and visit the Striker store. What is
the Striker headquarters?
Yeah, the headquarters. There you go. That's a way better term. And actually, Josh was asking a lot of those same questions. So I don't have all of the answers, but I can get you going on some of that because I imagine that people at home are wondering these same things too. So Josh is actually in a very similar mindset to you. He's interested in the Apex suit, but does not need the amount of warmth that the climate offers because that's what he has otherwise run in these past years with no. You have never put your insulation in it ever, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I run it when I go. We just got our first snowmobile last year, but prior to that, when I was going on snowmobile trips and stuff with people, I would wear it. But we do spend almost all of our time outside, and so the climate suit is good for that. But like you said, I'm looking to reduce my bulk a little bit. It is a very warm suit, so most of the time I don't have the liners in. For sure, not in the jacket. Like if I'm wearing the jacket, it does not have that liner in. But I was warned that if I was looking at the Apex, that is warmer than the climate. It's lighter, but it's warmer. And so my attention turned more to maybe the Predator suit or the Predator bibs. I don't necessarily need to have multiple winter jackets, but.
Well, and actually the other thing is if you are looking for that crossover into the boat, the really cool option that is out there is the Trekker series. So you get all the wind and the waterproof and actually all the flotation and everything, but it is lighter than the Predator and a super, super affordable price. And I've seen some great deals at some of the dealers out there. So make sure to check that out. But also comes in a really cool new pattern this year.
Yeah.
Like the tan,
tan and camel.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's a great suit to bring up because it's a great entry level suit. It doesn't have a whole bunch of bells and whistles on it, but it gives you the same kind of storage. It gives you the same kind of floatability, and it's a good way to get introduced into it to see if you like how the products run.
Super light, super bubble.
And it's a good setup.
One of the things that really caught my attention on the Apex bibs were those buckles, the pivoting buckles. That I really liked that idea, and that I was really drawn to it because of that. So I was thinking, maybe I would get the Apex bibs and then get the new pullover that they have. Kind of, I think that would be a good combination. Actually, kind of, I don't need the full parka necessarily, but it would be nice to have the bibs. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, you let us know. How it goes.
That new pullover, I forget the name of the pullover, but man, that looks really nice. Actually, I'm kind of interested to check that out.
Yeah, you said Fusion hoodie. I think the Fusion hoodie is a black sweatshirt, or that's also white, or I think they also have a navy, which is awesome this year. But there is a brand new shell that's coming out for Icy's, and I'm looking over to this other. We have two screens here, and Josh is pulling it up on the website because you are excited.
Renegade.
There we go. That's the name of it. Yes.
Can we put that up on the screen really quick? I don't know if everyone's interested in this, but we'll show you really quick.
Can you just do that really quick?
I'm interested in it.
Yeah.
So right here, this is what we're talking about. They have a charcoal one, which is personally my favorite, but a lot of people like the black one. it's really cool. So it has the side pockets and a pouch. So like a regular pouch, but then a zippered pouch. Has like a little wind block here, and it is a pullover. But the cool thing is it has two-way zipper vents, just like on your bibs.
Yeah.
So it makes it easier to pull on and off, but you can also use them to vent.
Yeah. Yeah, the one side zips all the way from, you can show that little zipper.
Right here.
It zips the entire way all the way up to the armpit. And so it does have the second zipper that you could use it just to vent. But then the other side, it doesn't zip the whole way, but it does have the vent under the armpit. So actually that was pretty cool to run into. So
I think it has the formable hood on it too, right?
Yep.
I think
it has, and it's windproof. Has the fleece interior, so that's nice. And the cuffs really make it when you can seal out the wind in the snow from not going in your arms. That's really nice. But that's going to be a really good setup for those of us that don't like to wear jackets all the time.
Plus there's, like you said, gray and black. There's a third option for the colors. Yeah, I know it.
You know it.
Yeah, I think that's another one that would work really great out in the boat as well.
That one.
Yeah, that is super cool. That's pretty awesome for hunting season coming up. So
yeah,
absolutely. One of the things I heard right away was, gosh, that's a lot of money to spend on a pullover. Well, I don't think people are understanding what it actually is. You know, it's not a pullover hoodie. It's actually it's more like a jacket than it is a hoodie. So
yeah, it's kind of like a hybrid. You know, it fits like a hoodie, but it more functions like a jacket.
And quite waterproof, you know, like not completely waterproof, but for the most part, you know, if it rains a little bit, you're not going to get wet or anything. So
yeah.
Perfect. So with fall coming up here, I guess I'm going to get back to fishing a little bit before we let you go. So what does your fall look like coming up here?
So yeah, I do guide trips Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and I'm pretty much booked up for the rest of the year. So I'll be hitting the St. Croix River every weekend and catching these fish behind me here, these sturgeon. We have a blast. You know, we go out. I don't know. I think a good average is probably 5 to 10 fish a night, and usually we pull in at least 150 incher, which is kind of cool because when I first started doing this. A 50 incher, you know, we were just jumping all around to catch a 50 incher. And as this fishery gets better and better, you know, 50, we don't even blink at a 50 incher, you know, it's almost expected every time, you know, we're getting excited when we catch a 60 incher, and, you know, these 70s are showing up every now and then. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great fish, you know, just to take novices out. You know, it's really easy to fish. We put the rod in the holder, we wait for the bite. I tell them to go start reeling. They reel down and they got the biggest fish of their life on. You know, it's like super easy that kids come out, they're catching these giant fish, and it's a lot of fun to take these people out, and we have a good time. And the one thing it does, you know, get a little colder here until the fall when we're going into October and November. So I do have a full canopy over my boat, and then we put the sides and sometimes the back on, and I just take my big buddy heater and put it inside of there, and we stay nice and toasty out there. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a little driving. I'm about 60 miles from the river, so it's putting a lot of miles on my truck, beating the heck out of that thing. But it's fun. We have a good time with it. I enjoy it.
You know, that's really cool that you are able to set up a heater while you're out there. The awesome thing about that cool weather, though, is that there's no mosquitoes or other bugs.
Yes, much different than being out there in the middle of June. Yeah, sometimes I use these thermocells, which work really well. Like I will not go out there without a thermocell, and there's times it saves the trip, turning one or two of those on. So, but yeah, the no bugs is great. And the other thing is the St. Croix has a lot of recreational traffic, and they're wrapped up. They're in the marina, so we can enjoy time out there without those big boats running you over all the time.
Yeah. That is really a great point. The river, especially after the evening, into the later evening, does really change a lot. It is a really beautiful time to be out there. So, gosh, it's making me feel like I should have hit the river. Our river temperatures are not quite close enough to fall fishing yet that I can be that excited yet.
They're getting there. I think I had I want to say I had like 65 the last time I was out. So with the last few nights, I bet you we're probably in the low 60s, probably. And once we hit that magic 50, things kind of go crazy. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're right behind you. We're at, last time we checked was 65.
Yep.
We got a couple warm days coming up, but tonight we're looking at 40s for the evening, and 50s the rest of the week. So hopefully it's getting there.
And then did you say that you still had availability for trips coming up?
I don't actually. I'm complete. In fact, I have a little bit of a waiting list. So yeah, good for me, bad for people looking to get out. But if this is something you want to do, I would suggest, maybe starting to look towards next year, because it filled up pretty fast this year, and people were kind of disappointed they couldn't get out. So I would probably look towards next year already. It's kind of goes along with the whole supply chain thing, I guess. COVID actually was one of the things that sort of helped me. People wanted to get out and do something a little different. So I was one of the rare businesses that kind of helped. So that's a good thing, I guess.
And so for people who are not going to get to be on a trip with you, or maybe they already have something booked, how do they go about following you and some of your adventures coming up?
So they can check me. I'm pretty active on Facebook, so you can go to Three Rivers Fishing Adventures on Facebook. And I kind of like to update after every trip. I know a lot of guides won't do that, but I feel at this point, at least, there's enough water to move around that people aren't, like spot sniping. I don't feel bad, just doing daily updates. So I kind of, after every trip, I get home the next morning, I put up a bunch of pictures and maybe some videos, and it's kind of fun for the people that go with me too. They can go to my page and see all their pictures and everything. So you can follow along. I do a lot of pictures and stuff. So Three Rivers Fishing Adventures. And also I have a website too. I don't do a whole lot of updating on the website, but all the information is there, how to book a trip and everything. So that's it's with the number 3. So it's Three Rivers Fishing Adventures.
Yeah.
Perfect. And actually, Josh was able to get that up into our comment section. So I'm imagining on Facebook and stuff that will be clickable. On our screen, it just looks like black, but it is a full link. So if it's not clickable, you could put that right on into your little search bar and it will get you there. So that is awesome.
And I do have a YouTube channel as well, which is the same, Three Rivers Fishing Adventures. And I've been doing that for probably 15 years now. So I was one of the early adopters. Unfortunately, I didn't keep up with it like some of these guys. They're rolling in the cash, out there doing all these fishing channels. But I do have, a certain amount of videos that are sort of popular. So if you want to check out some of I actually have the video of catching this 78 inches through the ice that kind of became popular. So that's a fun one to check out, watching a 78-inch fish come through the ice. As far as I know, it's one of the biggest fish ever pulled through the ice. So it's kind of cool.
That is awesome.
Might
have to watch that after this.
That is for sure.
It's actually the biggest fish ever caught in Minnesota. It holds the record so far. So
nice.
That's really cool. Well, I'm definitely going to check that out. And I'm looking forward to following your guide page on Facebook, because that's something that actually I don't do yet. And I am going to. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Otherwise, thanks for being here with us tonight.
I appreciate the invite. I always like talking fishing. I never get enough of it.
Yeah. And to the people at home, thank you guys for being here as well, because that is always fun to, hear your input and chat with you guys as the show goes along. So I guess with that, we're looking forward to next week's episode of Hook, Line, and Striker.
Night, everybody.